Hi, this is Everest Watercolors. Welcome to my studio. This morning I'm going to do a little sketch here of a woodpecker. This is a watercolor sketch, so it's going to be a quick study here. But I like the texture on this tree. I really love the texture, so I'll show you how I do that, and then the coloring and so forth on the woodpecker. And I like that red plume up here on the head and the design here on the body, and a real simple background. So let me start out here by showing you my equipment. This is a field sketch book, which is about 8 by 10 sheets of paper, but it's got like 50 sheets in here, and it's got uh, watercolor paper, 140 pound, and also sketch paper. It's really a nice little field sketch book. I use this all the time, and I'll draw on the sketch here today with my mechanical pencil. And over here I got my palette, and I've got now I'm using natural hair brushes today. These are silver brush. This is the 3/4 inch silver brush. This is the 1/2 inch. So this is red sable. Some of the finest brushes now available in the market, and they're on my website at everestwatercolors.com. But the first thing I'll do is going to sketch into my design here. As I say, I love this tree, so I'm going to go down and going to follow the photograph here a little bit, but then the photograph is just a reference. So, but I want to get the shapes and so forth. So this just get a quick sketch here, and the tree comes fairly vertical, but again, I moved it off to the center because I don't want that to cut the paper in half. So for design reasons, move the edge over, and I want it to be irregular. And there'll be lots of texture on that side. I don't need to draw that in. Then the shape of the main subject here, the woodpecker. He has a long bill. And then shaped head, get the basic shape of the head. Again, I'm just drawing myself some guidelines here. There's the red plume. And I come down here, and the back of the bird comes down here, and he has these long feathers. There's a long feather here, long feather pattern here, and there's another one here. Then the tail goes down here. Then there's a little branch down here pokes out. I might add that in. Then only design, I really want to make sure I've got the up here in the head. Locate the eye, that red plume. I get the shape of the. Then this red is the white part of his face and so forth. I want to get that design right because I mean it looks. I like that design of the shape there. So I'll make sure I get that drawing. He has a little white plume up here. Then there's a white stripe across the face. I want to get that in, and curls down from the bill. Comes down this way, up toward that feather, and then there's a little piece of white under the chin, or I call it chin, but it's under the bottom here. Okay. And there's some little white here on the feathers, and I'll catch that also a little bit. And the background is going to be very simple. I got the basic shape sketched in, and you'll see it's a light drawing. It's a light drawing just to give me an outline of where I'm going to paint, just to give me some guides. Okay. So that's what a light drawing is about. So, and this is a sketch. I'm really not going to spend a lot of detail, but I do want to get enough in it to depict. So I'm going to work on that tree. I really like that tree. So get a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of yellow ochre. I need some dark, so I'll pick up a little bit of royal blue. Mix that in, a little bit of ultramarine, and maybe a little quinacridone violet. I like lots of darks in there. Okay. That brown mixing with that blue gives me a dark brown. Okay, now what I want to do is just get it started in here. I want a variety of color. But right along, I'm going to turn the paper around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that rough edge. So the way I'm going to do that is load the brush. And I'm going to drag the edge of the brush down on the side, using the side of the brush. So I'll get a rough mark I'm following my pencil drawing, so the way I have my edges right, okay? But by dragging the brush down on the side, I'm getting a rough texture, which is what I wanted. Now I'll turn it around here. Let's see. Okay, that's a good start. I'll let that dry, and I'll come back and maybe put some more color in there. But right now, I got the basic shape of what I wanted, the edge. Okay. Now with a smaller, with the 1/2 inch flat brush, I'm going to mix up a little darker color. I'm going to start adding the feathers and the dark colors. So a little bit of royal blue, a little bit of Payne's gray. I got a Payne's gray in my palette, and what that does, it really darkens the paint, but also dulls it down a little bit. Which in some paintings, you want that. You want a darker mix. But he's got black feathers, so I'm going to really put a little more Payne's gray here. And I'm going to just go ahead and paint in that color. But I want to leave some areas because he has feathers, so I won't let the feathers come along. Leave that. I don't want to touch that tree quite yet because I want to let that dry. And I'll add a little more darks in it because it's to make the paint darker, you just add more pigment. So what I did is picked up some more paint, a little thicker, and by adding more pigment to the paint, it makes it darker. I mean, that's pretty basic right there, but that's the general idea. If you want to get a darker color, you add more paint. And I'll come around here. I'll get the other part of this feather. He's got now a little more brown. Maybe I'll mix a little brown in it. Again, even though it's all dark, I want some variety of colors. So this part here on the back, he's got this long feather, and it come down, it gets darker on the inside. I'll leave some white. Just a little bit of white showing. A little more dark in here. Now, if you look at the photograph, I'm following this area right in here. It's a mixture of blacks, and I got a little bit of white stripes and a little bit of brown in there. So again, I'm just trying to work in this little bit of design right in here where I got it wet. So I'll get a little more brown, burnt sienna, and to kind of bring that in here, let it look like the tail feathers. And I can always add a little bit more later when it dries. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry. I'll come in and add some more detail to that when it dries out. Now I want to use a smaller brush. I'm gonna use the round, number 8 round here, which is a silver brush. These are all silver brushes, and they are fantastic brushes, natural hair. For a little detail here, I'm gonna use that dark color and come around the face here. And I'm gonna leave the white paper. I'll leave the white paper showing for that white on his face and this comes around here. Using the darks, I'm using the same dark mix I used for the feathers on the body. Now I'm using the same dark, which is a little bit of royal blue mixed in with some a touch of Payne's gray, just to really darken it down. I don't want to look blue, I want to look black. And get that face. Let's see. There's a streak that comes along here. Yeah, that really shows the character there. Okay. And then he has a dark bill. So use the dark color here to define the bill. I'll bring a little bit of that dark around, a little bit of that dark around the back. That way that'll define. Now the real bright color here, the red. This is Pyro Red. One of my brightest colors on my palette besides the yellows. But this red is really powerful. And what I'm going to do here is put that red plume here, which is kind of a striking thing on this particular woodpecker, because I think it really is the characteristic of this particular type of bird. If you've heard them out in the woods or on the telephone pole, you hear them knocking, knock, 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 knock. You hear that woodpecker sound. It's very, very characteristic of a woodpecker. It's a sound, but also this red comb up here. This really feathers up at the top of the head. And I think the last thing I want to add here, again, I don't want to get a lot of detail, but just enough to, this part I'm going to put his eye right here, and I'm going to leave some of those whites there to give a little more definition. A little more definition. Okay. I think I can go ahead and add in there's a limb down here. Just put a little bit of dark color, a little bit of brown, a little bit of black, dark blue. Okay. Now the background is going to be fairly simple, and what I'm going to do here is I'll mix up a little color. I'm going to put a little bit of green in here, just to give it a greenish look in the background. A little bit of green mixed in with this mix. It's okay. A little bit of that yellow ochre. A little bit of yellow ochre and green back here. Now, first thing I do, I take the 3/4 inch brush and I wet the paper. And you come around the edge here very carefully. I can always clean this up a little bit later when it dries. But right now I just want to get the rough background in. I re-wet the paper all the way around. It gives me a moisture. It gives me the paint's going to follow the water. So what I do is I put the water where I want the paint to go, and the watercolor will follow along. Now I'll put the large brush down. I added over. Now I'll use the smaller brush, the 1/2 inch. These are red sables. These are natural hair, and they hold a lot of paint, and they're really a lot of fun to play with. So now I'm adding in the background color, a little bit of greenery here, and it's just to give it a little bit of interest in the background. Again, I don't want any detail. This is all very hazy because it's in the back. Not a lot of definition back here, just to give you a color, a little shift in color, showing that you're in the woods somewhere with some trees in the background. I get up around the face here of the woodpecker, and I'll fix that little. See, I touched that wet paint with a wet brush, and that happens when you're working wet on wet here. So what I do here is I'll take a tissue and blot that down, blot that out, make sure it's nice and dry. So I use the tissue to blot up the wet paint. Okay, and let that dry a little bit, and I'll go ahead and mix in some more. Okay, now I'm going to finish up here. I think I'll just add a little more color to the stream. I'm using the 1/2 inch flat brush, and I'm dragging it on the side. That gives me that texture I want of the wood. I'm going to put a little more brown in here, maybe a touch of orange. In other words, make that tree look like it's really got some color to it, not just a Not just a dirty old piece of wood, but a little bit of color, a little bit of splash. And coming next to the bird. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to do is go up here, put that color back in up the top here. Use that yellow ochre. And I'll blot some of that out. Again, you use the tissue. I use the tissue as a painting tool to lighten colors. Now it's red there. I'll put a little more red down here. Kind of now that I've got red there, and in the background, I'm going to put a little more red in the background. Just move that color around a little bit so it doesn't look like it's one isolated spot up here. By putting a little bit of red in the background, it takes away from that little area up there. Okay, I'm going to let that dry, and I come back in and maybe put some final detail. Okay, I'm going to add some detail now. The paper's dry now, so I can go back and add in some more detail. What I want to do here, let's fix the body on the bird. What I want to do here is go in and tweak a little bit. So I'm going to use the round brush, the number 8 round brush, silver brush, and the dark color, and I'm going to enhance a little bit more dark up here around it, because this is where the real interest is, up here on the woodpecker. So get this a little darker, get the bill a little darker. So, you know, when you put watercolor down, when it dries, it gets lighter. So you really have to think about, you can always go back and add a little darks on, but if you're going to do it for the first time, you got to put a lot more pigment on there to make it dark right away. But then what I do is I let it dry, then I go back in, then I can add in some detail, like darken the colors a little bit. I like this. I'm going to make it next to that red. And around the eye, I can make a little more definition around the eye. Make a little more black around here. So I'm really fine tuning around the impact area here. Shaping that head a little bit better. And then down here. So this darks will make this area pop out a little better. The dark's against the lights. I got this white paper here, so this dark paint is really going to make that head come out really good. And I can come down here and put a little bit on here. Now this section here, I can bring this down a little bit. Kind of bring that in a little bit better. And I can use some strokes here to give a little texture to the feathers. Give them a little more detail. Not much. I don't want to add too much down here. The real area is up here in this section here. Okay, now the other part is down here on the tail. What I'll do is now this tree, what I did, I painted that and it looks pretty straight here. So I'm going to have this bring this tail a little bit better so the feathers kind of overlap a little bit of the tree trunk. That way it breaks up that edge. Gives me a little variety down here. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that yellow ochre, and I'm going to bring this tree out a little bit here. But first of all, let me show you a little technique here. Is I can take a brush. I'll use the round brush here. I'll re-wet this area here. Re-wet this area here. And I can remove some of that paint just by wetting it. And by wetting it, just putting wet paint on it, or wet, just what I said, a wet brush. Then I can just blot it. And if I wanted to, I can just lightly, a clean tissue, and just lightly stretch it. I can take off more, so I can remove some of the watercolor paint. This Holbein watercolor paint is very water soluble, so I can wet an area and pull some of the color off. Right. So what I did is I made this a little lighter here. Now I'm going to put in some color there. I want that tree to have a little more shape here. So I'm going to take this brown, a little bit of yellow ochre mixed in a little bit of burnt sienna, and I'm going to take this and bring that out here a little bit. And I'm going to add some more color. Just right now, while you have the same brush in my hand, I'm just going to add a little more color to the tree. Again, the colors, when they dry, they get lighter. And so you can always go back in and do a little fine tuning at the end. And I think one last touch. I'm really defining these tail feathers here a little better, make them really look like they're overlapping that tree trunk. And if I add one area, I'll add in another. And I'm going to see if I can add a little more red to that top, just to make it really come out. I don't know. I'll just try it. There's nothing lost, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Just add a little more red up there. Make that red really red. I'll leave the white paper, no problem. This little tree trunk down here, give a little more definition. So, you don't want to overwork it and overplay too much. But just a little fine touches to that paint. I'll bring up a little closer so you can see some of the detail of what I've added. It's still a little bit wet, and it's dry, but I'm finished on that. So that's my quick sketch of the woodpecker. So you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell to be notified of my next video. So I'll see you on the next video.